Next, we have a host of the show, Liina Laas, joined by Valeriia, Kadri, and Gerri. Give it up for them.
Hi, and thank you, Ucha. Really happy to be here with all of you. And I have so many questions to ask all of you, and we have so little time. So let's get started. So, as we are talking about sales, and this is the closing podcast, let's see how well we can help other people close deals. So, let's kick it off. A bit difficult to see you from here. But Valeriia, maybe start with you. So, you've had a really interesting journey at Bolt. You started there and it was your first job in sales, and now you are the global head of sales in the whole organization. So, what can you tell us? What did that hyper growth teach you about scaling teams? And what's something that you weren't prepared and what you wish you would have known today?
Okay, so I started, as you said, doing sales in Bolt 7 years ago. Since then, I have been promoted every year. So I've started as a sales specialist, then I've been promoted to a sales manager, then a team lead, then a regional, then head of sales. And what nobody told me is that the job is going to change completely. And what you got promoted for is not what's going to make you effective. And this is something you have to figure out. And unless you figure it out, you really get stuck. So this is the first thing I had to do. The second was that I would get some kind of a playbook, but not a single playbook will teach you what to do when there's just not enough information and just chaos around you. That's just something you have to develop personally. Just have this confidence to navigate through chaos, have some kind of an idea of like a global picture, what everything should look like. And even while nothing even reminds you of the picture that you're holding, you're still trying to push it in that direction and get everybody going and sell your vision of that you know what you're doing. Even if sometimes you doubt it at some point, that you know what you're doing, you have to just stick to it and push.
That's an amazing point. Like, remember the picture you have. I will definitely take that. So let's move on to Kadri. Kadri, you are in a very interesting role, and it's definitely not a normal company. Deal with a really complex and government projects, and especially as the topic that you are leading is cybersecurity. So, how have you learned to build credibility and consistency in this kind of environment where all of the details are very important, sales cycles are long, and complexity is high?
Yeah, I have been with Nortal for around 4 years now, and actually most of the time I've focused my sales efforts in the maritime domain, working with port authorities, ferry operators, selling automation, digital transformation, and that sector specifically is super traditional and takes a very, very long time. So I would say many challenges against us that would make it seem that we might not be trustworthy. Young female from Estonia somewhere, not brought up in maritime like the customers have. They've been there for 50 years, gray and old already, most of them. So what we have learned as maybe the most important things to get the credibility. One, you need really good references. You need to have this wow door opener project or case. And for us, that's really good because we really do have the world's most automated smart port here. So that's really easy to open doors with that. And it's even best if someone else is talking about you, right? So we're engaging our partners like Port of Tallinn, for example, the Estonian government, the ministries, getting someone else to speak on our behalf. I think that's one of the absolute best ways. And the other one is you have to be visible. You have to be someone that they have hopefully heard even before you approach them. So they might have seen you on LinkedIn or heard you in a podcast, or they just somehow get this reflection that, oh, I've heard of that company, must be good, it's for a reason. Maybe that's the top two.
Amazing. Podcasts.
Yeah.
Great to do podcast. And now, Gerri, you've also had an interesting journey. So you were leading sales in Fortumo previously, and now you are investing in companies through specialist VC. So you know how sales is supposed to be done, which I think is a really key thing for an investor, because not all of them have that. But what are you seeing in your portfolio companies? What's happening there in sales-wise? What are you seeing like, oh my God, this is new great things to do? And what are some missing the mark on?
Maybe a bit for a context. So in Fortumo, basically, we were the sales was happening in two sides. One, we were selling to telecoms, so we landed deals with all large telco groups around the world, like Vodafone, Telefonica. On the other hand, we were selling to Google, Spotify, Netflix, so that they could use carrier-based billing or mobile payments in their services. So they were also kind of sales processes which sometimes took a year. So my main thing where also I can help my portfolio companies. There are around 60 of them right now in our different portfolios, and they often sell to different hard to sell segments like energy, telcos, banks. And I still see actually a lot of mistakes being made, and maybe one of the most common ones is that even before you start selling, actually you should take a step back and map. Because if you're doing enterprise sales, you actually should. Very common mistake is that you're selling to a wrong person, and sometimes even to a wrong department. And when I remember very well that when we kind of took a target that we want to sell to Google with Fortumo, then we made a big sheet. We mapped. We spent quite a lot of time in different, reading news and mapping the LinkedIn, and we found around 20 names that were different types of stakeholders in this decision. And yeah, because if you sell to enterprise, it's not enough that you identify who is kind of there is no one decision maker usually, or sometimes if there is one, the guy is just taking the advice from the others. So you will need to identify like all kind of contacts there, and I still see that this is not being done properly. Very common mistake again is that I see some startup actually coming to us. Okay, we have agreed. I have agreed with proof of concept or pilot with Nestle or some large bank or Google But then when I start to dig deeper, then I found out that okay, actually the pilot is with that innovation department. Innovation department guys often have very different targets. They just need to run 100 different demos or proof of concepts a year. They make once a quarter a demo day to everybody else in the company, and that's it. So we see that companies often take the identifying to whom you should sell to very lightly, and then in this example, very rarely this innovation department the demos take you somewhere, because there is no agreed KPIs. Typically, you don't actually know who later on will be the actual buyer within the organization. And well, sometimes, yes, you need to start from them. But in that case, it's your task also to identify who later on would be the people who buy your solution in the solution, and make sure that they are informed, and make sure also that there are some kind of KPIs or some kind of measurable things that you can measure the success against. So I would say that, yeah, this is something that is strongly underestimated, that how big of a preparation work actually you need to do. And And the enterprise sales, in my view, is even much less about like sales as a like standard. It's rather very meticulous project management. There is many activities and many stages you need to do, and the people there also are very good. Enterprise salespeople often are different from kind of stereotypical salespersons who might be the loudest person in the room, especially like in US-based salespeople. So they want to talk a lot, but very successful enterprise salespeople, they listen much more. They are very knowledgeable in the domain, and they help the customer actually to kind of manage the project. So it's very different, and this is often which is the biggest lesson, that if somebody comes with a small startup, but okay, you might even start become into discussion with somebody from the huge organization, but you really maybe don't know that what kind of work you need to do in advance and also in the process. So I'm trying to help them a lot with this.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point, that you need to understand who is actually going to be buying. And same as, hey, you two have been mainly in this big enterprise sales, and Bolt is quite different, but even there, getting the right person is really important, and that sometimes is the biggest problem to solve. So maybe moving on from here to what do you think is something that the sales teams are still doing because that's just how everything's been done and no one's ever like gone like, why are we doing this? Is there something that comes to mind that if you had like pet peeve, like what would you cancel immediately in the whole sales world?
I have two. Should I start? So the two ones that come to mind for me are, firstly, when our sales teams are expecting the customer to give all the answers. That's a big one for me. I see sometimes, we're still in this mode of expecting every customer to give us the RFP, request for proposal, at the first meeting. And I think that's just not the way. If you want to grow fast and you want to expand your horizons, then you're going to need to lead the customer and show them what's possible. So that's the first one. And the second one is only, again, if you want to grow, you want to expand, be innovative, entrepreneurial, then I think you need to step outside of your comfort zone. So the other one for me would be only selling what we've sold before. We need to look just outside of our capability every time and expand and not get stuck in what we've 100% done before.
Yes, I can maybe a bit expand on my previous answer that it would be actually that talk less and listen more. That in many cases we see that the salespeople are very good at describing the features, what the product has, what it can do, but they might not be so good actually in actually listening whether this exactly fits what customer wants. And you actually can have the same type of product, but if you first listen to what customers' pain points are, you can talk about the same product in a really different way. In the way that they understand, you use the same vocabulary as they, even starting with this actually. They might use different terms for their kind of things. So you first listen what they use and then you answer in the language that they understand. And you even don't need to answer in the same meeting often. We had really great sales guy in Fortuma also who sometimes actually didn't talk much about. Talk very little in the meetings with customer and just gave some directions and the customer talked to them and sometimes even whined. So also important sometimes if customer wants to complain about some other department blocking them, or again it's poor psychology that then you listen to them. You don't come with you even don't need to talk about at all in this meeting maybe about your product specifically. And then later on when you have heard what they want, then you might send them a very straight to the point answer or a document which describes how your product solves the pain points that they have. So this is maybe one thing that we have seen also that where salespeople make mistake, they listen to not enough.
That's really funny that you've mentioned that. We put actually in our product a thing that we call the yapping monitor, which means that if you start talking more than 50%, it goes red and it says like, hey, you're probably not listening to the client. What about you? What would you cancel?
I actually really wanted to hear you guys talk about it. Like, this is a question I ask myself the most when I look at the sales funnel that we have, the way that we onboard our salespeople, and I ask myself, like, what is it that we are doing that maybe is redundant or something that we are doing because we have adopted it? And there's, of course, a lot, right? Like, and everything you've mentioned is very, very reasonable. But I would also say that this is just the truth that we know. Right? I don't think it's something that has not been done. It's just that because when we try to replicate it on a scale, we lose it, right? So from my side, I don't think I have an answer to this actually. Like, it's something I'm still really looking for. Like, to give you a very meaningful response, I cannot put my finger on it right now.
Yeah, fair point. We don't know what we don't know. Yeah, getting some gold here. I'm going to write these down. Okay, so what do you think if we're talking about software and tools and everything else? Like, are we now going a bit, too far, too many tools? Are we losing like fundamental human skills in the process because, you have this 12-point checklist maybe of what you need to do? How's your view on that? Or are some areas that we can still like fix?
Why don't you guys start this time?
Here I have an opinion. So, because we are not enterprise sales, like we sell like a lot and fast. Sometimes we have enterprise sales, but that would be like 10% of what we do. So, scale is everything for us, and the tools is everything for us. So, like if you have the right process, if you have the right tools, you can really streamline and like be very effective. But there is a downside to it as well. What I see when I go to local markets to like see how the sales teams actually operate, I do feel like we are gamifying it for them maybe too much. Like in the end, the activity mark completed becomes the end goal rather than the quality of activity that has been completed. And when I look at this, then I start to lose confidence that what we've been doing is actually the correct thing to do. Like the sequencing for the sake of sequencing, who has the most activities, who's approached the most leads. And I think we are losing the quality part here, especially now that we've been hiring like a younger generation with people that are like they've been hard-coded into scrolling, tapping, etc. We do replicate it a lot for them, and in the end, we do see growth in terms of an input, but not necessarily in terms of the output.
Yes, in my view, yeah, very correct. I think actually, if you the more smaller your prospects are, smaller or medium-sized companies, the more you can automate the sales with different kind of tools, and we are seeing it also in the portfolio that. But when you go higher, then actually, we just last week I spoke to one portfolio company who actually was piloting using the. I've forgotten the name of the software actually that gives to salespeople listens to the calls and then gives there are several of them and then gives specific scenarios.
I might know one.
Yes, scenarios to continue. Yes, there is one, and they gave up using this because they actually felt that the sales. Then the salespeople focused too much on the script that was on the screen and did not listen enough. And they did not take maybe just they said that the attention actually got to a different place. So that was one thing that I learned. But they actually continue using this tool for teaching salespeople. So when they actually salespeople when they start, then this is used for them to teach. But later on, actually, it's not anymore so useful. And I believe they actually still also are considering. Keeping to use it for like fact checking. If you sometimes there is some history with this customer. There are some kind of you need to know what kind of other technical prerequisites they have so that you actually can target yourself. So these things are valid, but not really recommending the kind of sentences or arguments what to bring next. So at least this was kind of. Their worry, and I've seen it in few companies that maybe right now it's a bit of disillusionment with this. But again, this is how it works with every technology. That at some point actually you will find the right spot where it can be used. And right now it seems to me that it's going to be the fact checks and these types of things that this kind of tools are will be very helpful.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it. I feel like you're reading my mind. We actually went through this process so part of Knowzilla, it is giving you the right answers live. And then we were like, okay, yes, the technology is really cool. It knows what to say and it's fascinating to watch it, but it starts to become distracting. So we have reworked it in our system that it's listening in, it's collecting the whole context of what's happening. And then if you are stuck, you can press a button like help me. Or you have the full knowledge base there. So let's say you're selling a very complicated product and the client asks something and you can't remember everything, then you just type it in. But yeah, it's like if something is thrown in your face all the time, it's again the input and output.
Yes.
More isn't always better. So we realized it internally and, talk less, listen more.
If I can add, I'm being brainwashed here by the advertisement of art of asking questions. There was actually just like on the screen, the art of asking questions. And also like the tool, that if we talk about the tool in this way, maybe it's not something we need to have live, but post factum, after the call has happened, does the person have the art of asking questions? Because the question is not only the question and answer, it's also where you're leading this discussion, right? And where I see people is that they have been taught that you should talk less, you should ask more, but then if you listen to the questions they ask you, like, why are you even asking this? Like, who cares? What is it gonna give you, right? But these tools, they actually give us an opportunity to then have like a report of all of these irrelevant questions that have been asked, or questions that didn't lead anywhere, or questions where you allow a person to say yes or no. And that's the whole conversation.
Yeah, I've recently been through a lot of demo calls myself because I need tools to run my business. And the ones that kind of annoy me the most is you can see that the salesperson has those 12 questions they need to ask, but they're not listening to what I'm saying. I finish my sentence, they ask another one, and I'm like, why are we here? So it's a little bit bizarre. Like, even if you put these questions, I'm sure are important. But then if you don't mean them, then the client feels they are not important, and they'll probably go somewhere else. But let's move on to talking about onboarding new team members. And I mean, yes, you are a VC and you see teams onboarding new team members, and that's probably how many things can break. And even in established businesses, you have a lot of new people in Bolt. There's always team members joining. So what challenges have you seen? What have been some key things you would suggest to someone who's scaling their new team? Maybe we start with Kadri.
Sure. So Nortal's teams definitely have been growing a lot during the past years. Like I think half a year ago, we purchased a company in South America with around 600-700 new colleagues. Before that, a company in the UK with a big team there as well. And definitely are challenges. And there's two that I would call out here as well. So the first one I would say is about our culture, what's unique about us, the Nortal story, because Nortal is so unique and is so powerful, and the Estonian way of doing business is so important. The pragmatism, the innovation that we bring to the public sector, but that we can also expand to other sectors around us. And I think this is not possible to digitalize. This comes from talking to people and having conversations. And so that's something that I always try to take the opportunity for. Of course, I cannot speak to 700 people, but when there are new people closest to my own domain, then I want to have these conversations with them and tell them why this is important for me personally. But the second part is what I also mentioned in the first answer, is this world's best references, or what have we done that is really inspiring in the world? What are all the cases, the customers, the great results that we have achieved? And that's the part that can be digitalized much better. That can be in a knowledge repository somewhere, and we can access that, because I do feel like a lot of these questions are coming to me personally as well. Have we done this? Have we done that? Have we done the third thing? And this could definitely, even in a technology company, be digitalized better.
Yes, I can continue. Maybe if I look at our portfolio of startups, I would say that the most critical stage, definitely in sales, but maybe in the scaling in the scaling timeline of a company is actually when you need to move from founder-led sales into actually building a sales team that scales, and that every new joiner would have the same information. That's your aim, and in many cases, then you make rule books and kind of descriptions on what should be done. And very often this fails. That we are seeing the companies actually that have raised A rounds, and until they have got into and in enterprise sales actually you can get into the A round with only founder-led sales, because you might get a handful of deals, but they may be huge. So you get a good revenue with maybe only kind of pretty basic small sales team, and often only founders. And then when you start to scale it, you run into a problem. And then you need to redo the organization several times. And we've got number of these kind of portfolio companies who are struggling with this challenge. And in my opinion, often these guidebooks or trainings that are given to new people, they are again too much product focused, but they are less focused, and it's hard to convey, I agree, but they are less focused on why do buyers would need to buy your product. And founders know it, because founders have actually went through this the product market fit discovery themselves. So they understand well how the buyer psychology works, and how you should actually tune the message to different buyers differently. But if you join later, and if the guidelines are too product focused, then the context is missing for the new salespeople. So again, in these situations, actually, we are seeing that it's yes, as you said, it's only can be conveyed through actually personal discussions, maybe having weekly or bi-weekly discussions where founders are present, and they go through the cases which might be stuck by others. And very often founders fall back to actually doing it themselves, which is a mistake again. And they say it's easier and they need to close the deals, but then it delays again.
Yeah,
actually, them working on this. Yes, exactly. You cannot scale themselves, so we need to explain them and help them in kind of trying to figure out the way how actually they can. Okay, maybe temporarily the company might have a lower sales than they would otherwise, but it's a critical actually then for getting to round B and C and then growing into a bigger, more mature company.
I want to add here that I think there is a mistake that they're making. Like if what you're describing, my onboarding was like brutal, and I don't see it happening anymore. And I think that's the problem. So I would go, we were also a much smaller company. I was the only sales, so I was reporting to the GM. The GM didn't have time to like play around, right? Like he would take me to a deal. He would look at me like, go on. I would go on. He'd be quiet. We would leave the room, and he would tell me like everything I did wrong, how I sat, where I looked, what I said. Did he like it or not? Did he think that people were engaged or not? And sometimes I was like close to tears, you know, like it was really like brutal. But this one meeting is 100 times more effective than a month of onboarding. And this is something people don't do because they don't feel comfortable sharing like a brutal feedback. They think like, oh, he doesn't know how, next time I'll do it myself. But you're just robbing yourself of an opportunity of having someone really strong on your team. And now, because we have so many layers, like we are growing, there is the team lead, there is a country sales manager, GM, the most senior people are away from this. People that we promote don't always have the knuckles to go and like go be very direct with the feedback. So we protect the people. And in onboarding, two problems that I see is one is overwhelming. We want to teach too much at first, like too early. They don't need to know that. They need to go and sell. And then we protect them from selling from too long as if it's not their job. You know, so we're like, okay, they're not ready to go into sales yet. We should still teach them more. No, like they should fail. And then once they fail, they will know exactly what they need to learn. And then they will be the ones coming back saying like, hey, how do I do this, right? So I think we have like became so comfortable. And I think as a society in general, right, like we're trying to protect ourselves, have comfortable lives, but that's not always the answer to how you can like quickly make the strongest team.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Really good point that, you know, is there too little onboarding? Is there too much? My last company I worked at before building my own was called Deal. When I joined, I was handed a country leader playbook, and it was an Ocean page that said, what is Deal? Here's a logo. And I'm like, where's the playbook, guys? So go and figure it out. But now, just before I left, which was nearly 4 years later, we, of course, realized it was just no one had time to do it. And product was complex, and we needed a lot of things that teams needed to know. So even I was on first calls with the clients that didn't have a team yet, and they're like, oh, but what are the taxes in Spain? Because the product is about payroll. And I'm like, well, that's a great question. So, but before I left, we had so much onboarding that new team members were completely overwhelmed. They had to watch like hundreds of hours of video, and they were no smarter than the ones that had no videos. So it's really important to find that balance. Yeah, moving on from here, like as we're talking about sales knowledge, what do you think is the most valuable inside organizations, but somehow we're not sharing or capturing it properly?
I did talk about the references. These are in professional services. This is gold, and that's one thing. But I think we covered that already. So as the second one, I think what is holding me back, our teams back a little bit, is not knowing who knows who. Because we're such a big company and we have people everywhere. And I'm sure we have contacts to all the big companies in the world, and loads of contacts. But I don't know who other people know and who are their friends, what did they talk about. So this, our personal LinkedIn, of course we could deduct it from LinkedIn somehow and scrape it. And I don't know, maybe there's some really smart tools for that, but at least we haven't utilized that good enough at that point.
I agree 100%. And sometimes it randomly happens that we get unblocked because by accident, by some luck, we find out someone knows someone. We open the door immediately, we sign the deal immediately. But to get to that point where we find out, somehow we are just so focused on our problem without sharing it in the company wide to actually get unblocked. And we actually have exactly the same issue.
Yes, and my opinion is that that what is not shared usually properly and it's hard to share is actually reasoning of why customers buy from you. That playbooks are too much product centric and they sometimes also they focus maybe too little on enterprise sales is a long process, and there are sometimes actually quite points which are not even product related. They might even not be the related to the fact why customer buys, but they might be for example, we have one health tech company who has now started to find out that in many European countries they are selling to hospitals and they basically use some sensitive medical data, and they have started to find out that actually in many countries in order to work with hospitals you also need to be first vetted. It's considered as a critical infrastructure in many countries, so you need to be vetted by a local security agency, basically, like Kapo in Estonia. And if you kind of promise customers some kind of timelines and you don't know it in going to a new country, then you again might miss a big deal. So this kind of peripheral information that sometimes can happen and cannot happen is also sometimes not part of a standard, because it's not a standard situation and there are many of these peripheral obstacles that can happen to you. But I think these should also all be kind of a part of a checklist that salesperson go through before they discover it too late. And sometimes it's
These are really hard ones in practice, right?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly the kind of thing that you wouldn't know until you come to it.
But in their case, we say that in one case, in one country they knew it, but it wasn't really. They didn't know that in selling to other countries they would have needed to check the same beforehand. The salespeople didn't have this information, so they kind of were about to lose a deal because they didn't first go and check whether this condition is in another country as well. So there can be these types of things which are not even related to how good the product is at all.
Yeah, again, you don't know what you don't know,
Yes.
But someone in the team might. So it's really crucial to find a way how you share this tribal knowledge, because probably we know more than we think we know. That's really interesting.
If I can add, then I'm thinking that's the type of situation where technology could help us out so much as well, because the technology knows it's somewhere. It's in someone's Teams messages, it's in someone's emails. Is this information already, right? And I think nowadays technology would be able to capture that we're in a similar situation. We're at this stage of the deal. Have you done that check?
Yes, actually, very good point that we also last week have discussed with few teams in my portfolio actually who really are amazed on specifically these two teams. They have been using Claude to co-work, and which basically goes through all your catalogs, all the inboxes where you give it access to, and then exactly the Claude co-work actually has been able to identify these kind of things that actually can appear in similar situations, but which might be rare enough that they are not put into the general playbook. But and they otherwise they are not found because you don't know the one person who had this problem before. But it might be somewhere in the files, and previously it was just forgotten by history. But now the tools, be it Google be it Claude, Cowork, or something else, actually can find these kind of edge cases.
The way you're describing it is like the ideal case scenario where they know what they're looking for and through the tools they look. Because we also like looked into the other side of it where we're like AI, automations, all of the tools, right? And we are throwing so much at them. We're like, here, more, learn more. Here's the tool, here's the trick. And I think now they just like have this like really like they're exhausted of all of the information that we share with them. So it's something for us also to reflect on and to revert is to allow people the space where they look for it, but they definitely know where to look rather than just constantly share proactively with them.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I was just going to ask about AI in my next question. Now we're there. Very, very solid points. And yes, technology can do all of these things. And even it doesn't have to be the edge cases. Sometimes there's the same thing that comes up in every sales call, but no one shares it because salesperson has, a job to do. They need to close a deal. And a client is going like, hey, I would like something like this at first. When you're new, maybe you're enthusiastic. You share with the product team. It's like, hey, they really want that. But then product team is busy and no one wants to listen to you. So that information then leaks. And maybe you're losing some really important business opportunities. Mm-hmm. But as AI is everywhere, and it can be very overwhelming. We want to put AI here and there, and I don't know, put cats on AI and whatnot. Do you think that is it helping sales teams perform, or is it a distraction, or what do you feel? Are you using AI in your sales, or for example?
Yes, of course. I think it's impossible. I would be really surprised to find a sales team that wasn't proactively using, and without their knowledge, they're basically forced to use it nowadays as well. So yes, we are using. I think we could use it much more, to be honest, as well. So personally, or in Nortal, what we use it for is, for example, we're monitoring almost the whole world's public procurement. Almost all of it. So someone has to go through it and see what is relevant for us. Does it fit with the services that we have, with the markets that we're servicing? Are there any special clauses in there that we should pay attention to? So this first, for us, go, no-go decision or triage, is it even relevant to look at by a human? We use AI for that. I use it, of course, on a daily basis for so many different things, customer materials, researching customers before a meeting. Sometimes we have these random, a little bit random for me perhaps, but they are strategic at a place in Nortal. So someone says, we're going to have a delegation visit to Zurich next week. And really fast, I need you to tell me who are the targets you want to talk to there. So I use AI for that, for example, as well, to be able to really quickly find out who are the target companies in my segments that I want to have on that list.
Yes, I would say that almost every company in our portfolio also uses it. And I think that's the best use of it is basically having it as internal efficiency tool. So starting with very basic things like doing call summaries, pre-filling CRM. This was a decades-long headache actually of how the CRM should be filled. All fights going on between salespeople who feel it's too cumbersome and the sales manager requiring them to fill it in. At least, I'm so happy. This is the best change actually, that now these kind of things are automated on the background, and then this is a big thing. Also, RFQs, for example, if you talk about enterprise sales, it used to be just grinding work. Sometimes, actually, many weeks of many people's work to go through them and kind of analyze what's exactly. You can really make a kind of much easier right now. Use this for making. However, where AI doesn't work, I think, is where it's sometimes overused, and now there is a fallback. Is outbound. Really, there are many companies. We have been approached by tens of companies who actually do outbound sales, not assisted, but sometimes just generated by AI. But we all know that today almost instantly understand whether it's generated by AI or whether it's written by a real person. And maybe if your customers are really, and not maybe, it's actually, if your customers are relatively small companies, you can do it. It's a low stake decision. Sometimes some type of solutions which are being bought by them, it's efficient. But if you go even to middle level, then this is it doesn't work. It doesn't have the emotional intelligence that actually a person can put in. And again, it's used for helping to make these emails and have some factual knowledge, but not really kind of optimizing this process. So I'd say that in sales, it's basically, it helps with internal efficiency a lot, which is a big thing, because this sales process also used to be all these things that I described before. They were a big headache for salespeople. And salespeople hated this. They wanted to do sales. Now they can do it actually much better.
And if I can add one thing, is to what you said, I agree with you completely. And even for small businesses, these reach outs are just getting crazy. And the AI, something that can do really well is to increase the quality of your outreach, right? But I think many companies skip that completely and they just increase the quantity of a very poor quality outreach. And now instead of receiving one, it's just crazy. Instead of getting one very bad email, I now receive 10 every day with a follow-up, and there's a template with my name, so now it's personalized, right? But we are also getting educated as the buyers, not only as a sales team. We also buy. And when you see this, I have intolerance. Even if the product excites me, I have a hard time getting over this email to even respond to a person. It's just personal at this point.
And I remember we were in with my team at TechChill some years back, and Salesforce was just up and coming, and they are on the stage. So my team, I have there my SDRs, 3 or 4 of them, and we go to watch the pitches, and on the stage they are going hey, here's Salesforce, we will fire your SDRs. And the girls on my team are please don't fire us. We want to work. And then of course the AI will not fire your SDRs. It can automate things, but we could already automate things, and sometimes it made the outreach worse, like you said.
Yes, AI can actually help both sides, so that if you use it right, you are just sending less things to irrelevant people. So lead generation is another kind of important thing actually, where it helps to raise the quality. So in that case, there has been some kind of, I think, sometimes some pushback now that okay, will the AI now flood everybody with kind of irrelevant emails? But actually, if used right, it should help both sides. That you get stuff which is more relevant, because if you are a buyer, then lead generation.you has been done in a much better way than the other way around.
You mentioned the lead generation, and if I can just add to that, something that I'm thinking where I'm hoping AI could go to in the future is what I would call opportunity generation, maybe. So not just capturing that someone already has a need, but the ability to scan situational awareness of what we have going on in Nortal, what's going on in the world, the news, the annual reports, whatever organizations are putting up there, and then making connections and combinations of putting complicated things together and saying, you did this really great AI project in an IT OT environment in Finland, and then you have this customer here in UK, for example. They're in defense, but then if you add this capability from Estonia that is just experimenting right now, but you can add these together and it will be wow for you. The human brain sometimes either doesn't have time or doesn't get to all of that, but I'm hoping we can get there with AI soon as well.
I see my co-founders are sitting there taking notes. Okay, this is what we build tomorrow. That's amazing.
Look forward to it.
But I think we are unfortunately running out of time. So maybe if there's one last thing that you would recommend to an ambitious salesperson, what to do today in current climate to win at sales or improve, or anything you want to chat.
Me again, but I would just say really simple advice. Maybe I was at the board of Dover, I think yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, sorry. And there was a partner engagement event. There were around 100 people from the industry there, and everyone had 5-minute chance to go talk to an executive. And what I did was I took all the opportunities that were there. So one thing is I go to talk to the assigned executive that I have, but then I go to the next executive that is free, and the next executive, and the receptionist, and I leave my materials there. And just the advice is step outside of the rules, maybe step outside of the comfort zone. Like, you're allowed to talk to people, take the chances that you have, and just have a little bit more maybe energy in it.
Yeah, I would say, I can maybe add that I would say to salespeople that your jobs are not actually in danger, because none of the tools actually will threat the emotional intelligence that the person has. So, but what you will have from now on is that your job will just be much more enjoyable. You get less rejections if you use AI right. Then you can focus on the tasks which you like to do, which is actually the actual process of the sales and helping the customer. So in that regard, I see that actually sales roles, I would say, are even more important and are much more relevant and are much more enjoyable down the road.
100%. Before that, I would not have agreed to have a meeting. I would have everything done through the phone or email. Now, like Liina, that's how I met you. I'm just like, let's go have coffee. We're gonna talk. I don't want any of this anymore. But for sales reps, I would say to keep a flexible mindset, probably. And what I see with top performers where they get stuck is that they crack the code, they know what works well for them, and then they don't try anything else until it becomes outdated and they are behind. So, like, if something works for you, that's great, do that, but try new things. Be flexible, be brave. If you drop 1 month for your quota, but you learn something new, maybe that's a bigger uplift than just staying like a top performer constantly.
Amazing. Words of wisdom here. One of our values at Knowzilla, accidentally as a joke, was don't be scared. Now we're using it at everything, like don't be scared. Launch the product, ask that customer. So much great stuff from here today. We have to wrap up. Now there's a pitch competition starting also on the bold stage. So yeah, with this, we close the podcast stage. And salespeople always be closing. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give them one more round of applause. And yes, this wraps up our podcast stage. Thank you all for tuning in for at least, if you came to at least one of these 8 podcast recording sessions. We're very happy to have you with us. But now, as Liina mentioned, we have pitch competition or bold stage. And then see you next year. Thank you.